All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for your interest in our Speaking in the New Normal. We have a fantastic group of presenters here with us today. I hope that this will be a very informative and engaging event for all of you guys. Please do not hesitate to ask questions. We unfortunately do not have the Q&A button in this particular Zoom session, but I have created a Google Doc for everybody to add questions throughout the presentation so they don't get lost during the presentations, right? Or during the chat, I'm sorry. We've already received a couple of questions from people prior to entering the meeting, so you're more than welcome to add questions, either general questions or questions for individual presenters. So feel free to use this link to ask questions to our presenters. We are going to be starting our first roundtable discussion very soon for our face-to-face discussion. And so I would just like our face-to-face presenters or face-to-face context presenters to introduce themselves. We will have 5. We have Jason Hill, John Hozack, Erin Garcia, Parvati. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce your last name correctly. I should have asked you about your last name too. Normally I'm a first name person, but would you like to tell me how to pronounce your last name? I'm sorry.
Sure, that's okay. So my last name is Ramachandran.
Ramachandran. Okay, thank you so much. I feel really embarrassed now. And then we have Erin Noxon as well. So thank you all very much. If you could take just a few moments to introduce yourself, that would be fantastic. Jason?
Okay, I'll start with myself. My name is Jason Hill. I'm originally from Edmonton, Canada, and I've lived in Japan for the past 16, 17 years, and I am an elementary school and junior high school assistant teacher here. I love my job, and I'm looking forward to having a roundtable with you all today. So thank you.
I guess that makes me next since I'm going to be going up next. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Hozack. Like Jason, I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada as well. Yeah, let's see here. What can I say about myself? Let's see here. I've been doing reading and writing workshop. I've been a teacher for past 30 years inside the international system and outside in the Japanese system. I've taught kids from kindergarten all the way up to adults who are trying to get into university overseas and stuff like that. Today's my topic is mostly on junior high because currently I'm at a private junior high school. And all right, that's it for me for now.
I'll go ahead and go next. My name is Evan Garcia. I'm originally from Virginia in the United States. I taught English in Korea for 2 years and then came to Japan, worked at an eikaiwa for 1 year, and then returned back to the public school system here in Japan. So I recently graduated from USC. So I still have some, and I did it online. So I have some contacts with people who live in Taiwan and in Korea. So actually that's related to my presentation. But I've been all over the place and still kind of a newbie, sounds like, but I'm excited to meet everybody. Thank you.
Erin, do you want to go next?
Oh, you can go.
Okay. Hi, this is Parvati. I guess we were going in the order of the speakers. Anyway, let me introduce myself. My name is Parvati Ramachandran. I am originally from India, from Chennai, southern part of India. I've been teaching English for academic purposes, mostly for adults. In India, I taught students from, not really Indians. I was teaching students from Afghanistan, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and also very few students from Japan. I moved to Japan a couple of years back, so I'm fairly new to Japan. been teaching at Kindai University in Osaka. And I've also taught a couple of sessions with the JICA Nihomatsu Training Center up in Fukushima. So most of my experience has been around adults. I'm really also looking forward to hearing from the other speakers here today. Thank you.
All right. I think I'm last. My name is Erin Noxon. I'm actually a science teacher by trade, and now I'm here in Kyoto teaching at Sagano High School. It's a public high school. I teach science in English and conversational English in English. So it's been a really interesting and hard year for us. I'm originally from Florida in the States, if I didn't say that already, and my doctorate is in educational technology. So I come at this from a technology perspective into English. So it's like backwards than most people, I think. But yeah, I'm really excited, and since I'm at the end here, I'm gonna say thank you again for having all ages here, because I love having events where high school teachers and junior high school teachers, elementary, we can all join in with this big conversation, because there's so many of us that do that. So it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Hi, hello. This is Revati. I'm unable to see myself. The video is on anyway, but still, yeah. Okay. Am I visible now? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you
I will
just
just
fine.
do the talking
Yes,
because
you
we
are.
are losing time. I'm from Chennai. And it's morning in here. It's 10 o'clock here. I taught tertiary level students for 26 years. I worked in Sultan Qaboos University, Muscat, for 1 semester as a visiting professor. And then I continued in India. I recently retired as a professor and head. Now I'm a freelance educational consultant. Now currently I'm handling online classes through Moodle, online training given to the teachers through Moodle. I visited Japan in 2010 for attending a conference, the World Call Conference. So I had the opportunity to go around Japan, and that's all about me today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have other speakers from the online hybrid, but I'm going to wait for those introductions to be at the start of the second introduction, or the second roundtable discussion, so that it's easier to remember. But yeah, it is 1:40. We're right on time. We're just about on time. 1:41. Jason, you can go ahead and start. And once again, for those of you who just trickled in, you can ask questions to the presenters using this link. That way it's easier for us to keep track of everything that's going on in the chat, so your questions don't get lost in the chat. But yeah, Jason, it's all you.
All right, thank you. We're going to try this format here, and I'm going to start us off, and I'm going to speak for Rachel. You said we had up to 15 minutes, right? Was that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so up until 15 minutes, I'm not going to use the entire 15 minutes to speak. I'm going to use 5 minutes to speak, or around that. Then I'm going to open it up around the horn, as we say, to the presenters in our first half, and we can have a discussion about this. And then after 50, when it hits around the 15-minute range, I'm going to make a subtle hint in the chat that we're going to move on to our next presenter, kind of like a discussion format, so no one's losing any time. So I'm just going to launch into my presentation, then, and we'll try this out. So here we go. So I teach in junior high and elementary school, but today I'm going to focus on the elementary school because we do have some junior high school presenters here, which works for me. I love speaking about my time in elementary school. And what I wanted to speak about was my experience with the stress of dealing with the virus itself and how it's really impacted everything, including how I speak in the classroom. And I wanted to go over a couple of things about my experience here in Japan. First of all, when this all came down, of course, those of you who are in Japan last March might remember that the government declared a state of emergency. And at that point, depending on where you live in Japan, classes were either canceled altogether, or maybe they weren't canceled so much. In my area, they actually, I think I lost a total of 1 day of classes. That was it. And in Tokyo, I hear people weren't going back to school for months. And depending on your area you were, it was a very different situation. It was also obviously a very stressful situation. I was worried. All I do in junior high school, in elementary school, sorry, is speak. I mean, there's no writing practice at some of the levels we do. We do that with the 5th and 6th graders now, but for 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm just speaking with the students, and that's what I do the entire class. So a lot of this is me and them just having a conversation and me teaching them stuff to say. So it was very worrying when we didn't cancel classes. I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to deal with this? It was stressful. And today I want to talk to you about how I grappled with that and how I came up with some solutions to deal with the stress of not being online and having just to go as it is, even though there's this deadly virus out there that's stalking you. First of all, I've got some good news. And the good news is, if you live in Japan, you've probably noticed that this country takes the viruses very seriously, and they've taken them seriously well before coronavirus. I've worked here since 2003, and as early as 2009, I noticed that they've had disinfectant and hand sanitizer bottles at the entrance of my schools. They've been doing this a long time. Mask wearing is also a very normal cultural thing in this country. So that was something that didn't take long for everybody to adapt to. Many people already adapted to it. That put my mind at ease a little bit. My school boards were at attention and ready to shut things down should things happen, should virus start to spread. And they've done that previously with the influenza virus. You probably, if you've worked in a high school, junior high school, or elementary school in Japan, you'll know that the school boards and schools are quick to shut down schools, classes, to get at that virus. So the good news is this country is very, very good at tackling viruses. And so that put my mind at ease when I started facing this crisis. But now for the bad news, and I don't know if it's bad news, but concerning news is that regardless of how good you are at confronting something like coronavirus, it's always going to be there, and you can't tackle it 100%. There's always a risk. It's a numbers game, and all it takes is one person and to start that spread, to start that cluster. So you're always managing risk. It's never 100%, and you're always going into these situations feeling a little bit stressful. I didn't want to walk away from this situation. I love my job. I love teaching, even though it was a stressful situation. I think it's the first time I probably spoke publicly about this, but it was a real tough thing for me to decide to just get back in there, to go into the front lines and just to keep teaching English. To continue that sense of normalcy for my students, because I'm sure they were wondering what was going on. All their parents are kind of scared, and their teachers are kind of scared. And I think overall it worked out that we kept the face-to-face aspect instead of going online with our elementary school classes. Maybe we were lucky that way. Maybe in my area is a smaller area and we didn't have the spread that they had in other areas. But it was still a stressful thing for me and for my students and for everybody involved. Now, I want to get into how I managed that, some of the practical things I did in the classroom to make myself feel at ease, I guess, even though I still, in the back of my mind, felt like it's still a numbers game and this could go south any day or any moment. Of course, mask wearing was essential. I made sure all my students in the class were wearing masks. Believe it or not, this was not something that was mandatory right at the start. And in fact, up until maybe that big second wave back in November, people were still taking it kind of here and there. It wasn't exactly something I would say mandatorily enforced. I was wearing a mask all the time. But what I realized was that when you wear a mask and you're in a speaking situation, they can't see your mouth. And it's hard to teach speaking when people can't see your mouth. I had a discussion with some higher up people, and what I decided to do was do a hybrid of wearing a face shield and a mask. And when I needed to speak clearly and show my students, I took the mask off with the face shield on, kept my distance, spoke what I needed to speak, and then put the mask back on. I still didn't feel at ease about that. I still felt like it was creating a bit of a risk, but I mean, every classroom's different. I didn't have a lot of students in my class, but it was still a little bit nerve-wracking. Then I came across an article, and I was going to share this article, but the article doesn't exist anymore. So you can find similar articles. I'm not going to post one of them now, but it was a study done in the 70s on the spread of tuberculosis in hospitals. And what doctors concluded was, and tuberculosis, by the way, has a higher, they call it the I can't remember the R number, I guess it is. It spreads more than coronavirus or influenza. It's got a very high spread rate. And doctors were having a hard time figuring out why they were getting so many cases of tuberculosis in their hospitals. And then somebody came up with the idea of just opening a window and creating a ventilation situation. And what they discovered was, as you got the number of, as you got more air circulation through a hospital wing or through a room, the transmission rate of tuberculosis went down. There's been a number of papers written about this in the years, some of them with evidence for it, and a few of them that are inconclusive. But it seems that there is something there about people ventilating rooms, creating proper circulation, and bringing down that rate of infection. So to give myself that last piece of ease, I started looking really seriously in my rooms and opening windows and bringing fans in, trying to get that circulation going, so that when I did speak and I had the mask off, even just for a short time, that I wasn't causing any problems. My fear is always that I'm spreading, because I work in many schools. I wasn't worried about them giving me anything. I just wanted to make sure that I was keeping the spread from me to them as low as possible, as always. I feel that all those things that I've done together, the face shield, the mask, the disinfectant, the circulation, they have made me feel comfortable, and I've been able to create a classroom where I feel confident that I can teach speaking in the classroom without fear of spreading too much. And I have my school at my back. If things start getting out of hand, at least we're going to work together to take care of that. But what I'm saying here is that there are situations, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure there's many of us out there that just never had that option to go online. We're here still, we're still teaching, and we're doing everything we can to make it as safe as possible for our students. And just some of the things I'll leave you with before I go into this short discussion that we're going to have about this is that creating distance, not touching hands for games, no high fives, just waving instead. So these are some of the things that I've done to try and keep down the risk. And when the class is over, I encourage all students to go wash their hands, just in case they've touched, students come into my classroom, they touching desks and stuff like that. So anything that I can do to keep my students healthy and safe, I will do. As for the actual examples of how I've changed my speaking in the classroom, other than the face shield and the mask, I try not to speak as loud as I used to, because loud speaking can spread things further and faster. So I've tried to keep it more conversational and calm. I do play games, but I do try and see if we can do them in a bigger hall instead of a smaller classroom. I feel a bigger hall is a safer venue than a smaller classroom. And overall, I'm hoping that as this year goes on, those face-to-face situations will be safer, and we can start to get back to a little bit more of a normal in speaking in elementary school classes. So just to wrap that up, that has been my experience of dealing with the stress of the situation and how I've handled it. I'll just throw it to the floor, and if anyone has anything they want to add or say, while I have my time left, I'll open it up to you. Go for it. If anybody maybe wants to, what should we have them raise their hand maybe? If they can, or if they can't raise their hand, somebody mentioned that they don't have a hand raising button, maybe just say, I'd like to say something, or just speak up, our group of our roundtable. Go for it. And if nobody has any comments either, we can also move on to the next one. I just want to, if anybody wants to chime in on their own experiences or anything like that, that's fine too.
Hi, Jason. I just want to add to what he was saying, and I do understand how difficult it is to teach with a mask. So I did opt for a face shield when we first went face to face. In the initial few months, I think last year between March and like August, we went online on Zoom, and then later in September we were face to face. So I decided to use the face shield without the mask for a period of time. And then what I started noticing is when you're using the face shield, also you have to make sure to clean the face shield and to replace it constantly. Otherwise, you're getting a lot of fuzz in the face shield. So that was a bit of a problem. And then I went back to using masks. But we tried to maintain social distancing as much as possible within the university. Also, another thing we were trying to do is to make sure that the students have their lunch in specific designated areas and not within the classroom or within where they used to have their lunch usually. So that way, again, curb the spread of the virus. And most recently, I taught a group of senior high school students in Kobe at a language center. And we were located right across from the Chinatown. So we basically made it mandatory that the students do not go to Chinatown to grab lunches and that they have to bring their lunch and sit in the class and eat. So simple things like that can probably help as well, I believe.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Small things. I think that's a big thing. I think one small thing might not be enough, but a whole bunch of small things might add to the probability you're doing something to, like I said, just a face shield by itself doesn't seem like enough, but a face shield and a mask maybe, and face shield, mask, more social distancing, all those things together create more of a safe environment. It's never 100% though, I don't think, but you know, as close as you can get, right?
We have a few questions for you, Jason, coming in.
Sure.
The first one is, how do you do pair work or group work?
Since my classes are small, I still continue to do pair work, but we do have things spread out a little bit. I do have my desk spread out more. Group work, if possible, if I am in groups, I try and use my halls instead of my classrooms for games and group activities. I'm lucky in some schools that they give me a hall to do my classes in. One school, I have a Tamokuteki hall, or a big group hall that we can do games in. I try and keep the group work in the big rooms only. For pair work, I'm not too worried about that. My theory is that the students are together in their bubbles anyways. They're hanging out with each other all day. So whether they're in my class together or not, they're already with each other. So keeping them apart in my class isn't really going to change things on the scale of mathematics. So for pair work, I'm not too worried about that. Although maybe I should be. If you think I should be, please let me know. Thank you for the question.
And we have another question. Were you ever dealing with infected students? If not, how can you say your precautions were effective?
Oh, that is an excellent question. As far as I know, I have not dealt directly with infected students. Our area has had very low number of cases, and I'm very grateful for that. Now, as to answer the second part of that question, how do I know if what I've been doing is effective? Okay, I don't. That is and I come from a science background as well. I have a BSc in biological sciences and physics. So I run the stats game. And I'll be honest with you, without the data points, I don't know. But I can tell you one thing that gives me some relief is that influenza numbers are almost at zero where we are. And I have a feeling that the stuff we have been doing, you can see that in the way we've been able to get influenza numbers down. So while it's not, once again, it's not a foolproof, because coronavirus does spread faster than influenza, I feel that what we've done in the classroom has kept, like, we usually shut down at least a class a year for influenza or something like that, right? It would happen. We haven't done that this year. And I don't even recall a student being sick of influenza this year, which is in my opinion, a miracle in itself. So if you want to know if it has an effect, I do think it has an effect. Maybe I could do some scientific research to find out how much of an effect, but I think there is an effect there for sure. Oh, Rachel, you're muted, I think.
Thank you. It looks like we've got some hands raised from some of our presenters, right? Jason Pipe and Evan Garcia, and we also have a question from Rawati. So if you guys, as presenters, if you guys wanted to unmute yourselves and contribute to that, you may. But we will have to move on very soon to the next presenter.
Just a quick question. I mean, it's a really interesting topic for myself because I teach at university, and for the last year, I haven't actually been physically in the classroom. I've been teaching online. So it's been a very different experience for myself. So I'm kind of curious to think about how did you create a positive environment, knowing the fact you got all these face shields and masks and such? How did you deal with it?
I think I just had to be as positive as I could, smiling, try not to laugh too loud, but I just showed the students I wasn't letting it get to me. And if it was getting to me, I didn't show that to them in the classroom. I continued to smile and show them that I was there for them, that I was teaching classes with them. I'm not going anywhere. I'll see them next week. And I feel that my students, whether or not how they responded, I'm not 100% sure, but I feel just those little things had a bit of an impact on them, just to show them that I'm coming back next week. I'm going to keep teaching you. Don't worry. And just giving them that sense of normalcy, even when, maybe they're not aware of the scale of what's going on. I felt that helped a little bit.
Thank you.
So to echo essentially the same points that you made, I work in middle school, and we've done face-to-face this whole time. And not every student is an angel. And that's been one of the frustrations as a teacher. If everyone wears masks and everyone behaves and everyone follows the rules, then things go smoothly. There have been a couple of kids at my school specifically that have taken off their mask and been gross to, I don't know, either garner attention or just be an overall, irritating human being. And that's very common in middle school, to have the rebellious attitude. So in my experience, the face-to-face has not been the most positive. Just to echo another side of the situation, that all it takes is one person to act like a dummy. And part of the problem is the hierarchy of teachers and such that you need to complain to about behaviors of students, whether it's with the homeroom teacher or with the principal, has had mixed results in my experience. So I don't know if you had any students like that didn't behave, didn't follow the rules. And if you did have those students, how did you respond?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Thank you for showing that other side. And we do have students like that. I don't want to call out schools or names, but it's happened, especially elementary school. And it's really hard to enforce these things with especially really young students. And once again, I'm gonna agree with you. Not every day has been positive. There's been nervous days where I'm like, I think maybe this is it. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna get it. This is the day I walk away, and 6 days from now, I'm gonna come down with a case of something, and I'm gonna have to go get a PCR test or something like that. No, it hasn't all been positive. There's been stressful days, and how I deal with it. I mean, I don't want to get too hard on the students unless they're being really out there, right? Luckily, I guess I haven't had students that are right. I mean, you got the student that wears the mask like this. What you gonna do, right? I mean, luckily my teachers have been there to kind of get them to do things properly. And I feel that once the second wave hit, things got more serious and students kind of fell in line a lot quicker than they did over the summer and fall. When people realized that things were getting like, the proverbial stuff hit the fan, I think people started taking it much more. I think they had some serious talks with the students at that point. But like I said, it's still not perfect, and kids are going to be kids. You just, it's a numbers game. I'm always playing that game, thinking, well, if it happens, it happens. I guess there's worse jobs to be exposed to than this. At least it's something I love doing, right? So, but no, not every day is positive. So thank you for giving that other aspect, that it's not always going to be roses, that there are going to be stressful days, and there's always going to be angel students. Yeah. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jason. I think we're going to move on to our next presenter. Before I let you speak, though, I wanted to remind everybody, I think there was some confusion as to which file you should ask questions on. For some reason, so the discussion highlights one that was actually just for our chapter members to kind of help document the event. I'm not sure how it got slipped into the chat, but so I'm sending the chat the link to the part for specific questions to individual presenters, because when you add questions within the discussion highlights, it's hard for us to read them and find them and identify them. So please use the link that I have just shared for questions for specific presenters from here on out. You can close the discussion highlights. That was more for our chapter members to help document the event. So thank you. And John, you may go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Jason. That was a great topic. I enjoyed that. So I'm going to share. I got a presentation. Hopefully, I'm not going to take more than 10 minutes. I'm sorry. When I do presentations, I start to ramble and make silly jokes. So I apologize if that starts happening. And so I'm going to share my screen. So if I'm going to ask Rachel just to make sure that everybody can see it, so I'm not sharing the wrong screen and stuff like that. Just okay. Okay, so can you see my presentation?
Yes, yeah, it looks great.
Okay, so everybody should be seeing my, just a second here. Just organizing my windows here so everybody can see. So my topic was reading discussion and getting kids to delve deeper into stories. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Hozack. I've been teaching reading, and well, I've been an elementary teacher, homeroom teacher for almost 30 years. I've also taught at different levels. I've mostly taught at elementary, primary levels, but I've also taught at kindergarten levels. I've taught at junior high, at high school, and university, and adults. I'm currently I work at a private Japanese school with their upper level reading and as their reading and vocabulary teacher. So basically, I know reading doesn't seem like it has anything to do with speaking, but actually it has everything to do with speaking. The reason is that what it is that young readers, or even regular people, young readers, even the very good ones, basically read at a surface level. So they have a very surface level understanding of the story. As a teacher, it's my job, of course, to make them think and go deeper, whether they like it or not. And a lot of times they don't like it because it's hard on them, or they just don't want to do it. It's not the easiest things. And what you notice is that young kids, they're very concrete thinkers. And as their brain develops, as they grow older, they begin to be able to think abstractly. But it's not a normal thing. And I try to think of a better word than normal, but it's a normal thing. It basically, it needs to be practiced so that it becomes a habitual thing. It's like riding a bicycle. No one's born being able to ride a bicycle. You just got to practice that, and then eventually it's like you never forget. And some people get better at it. Other people, they at least can get down the road without killing themselves, or so to speak. But for us, for the teacher, is to do this. You need to have the conversation to have them go deeper into the story. So if I bring this up here, so basically, kids can retell you the events of a story from backwards and forwards, very accurate. Like Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Right? Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. That one's easy. They all do that one. They can read it. They read all the words and so on and so forth, and no problem. As a teacher, you need to talk to them. You need to start asking them questions, because what happens is that what they do is they miss out on things. What kids miss, they never think about or even question. Like, for example, Jack is obviously an idiot. Who goes up a hill to fetch a pail of water? Nobody. You don't go up a hill to do that, right? So I was always, and obviously Jill tricked him to go up there, and then Jill clearly was trying to cover up her assault on Jack by tumbling after him, right? So she went up, tricked him to get up the hill, and then assaulted him, and then came tumbling after just to cover up her heinous act. That sort of thing. sorry, that was my poor attempt at a joke. That would be the last one. I apologize. But anyways, but basically what it is that you want to go into have the kids talk about it and go, why is he going up the hill? And why did he all of a sudden come tumbling down? What happened? And so on and so forth. And you come up with interesting stories and such. So basically, what I'm trying to do as a teacher is take them from the surface level of, the Jack and Jill goes up the hill to plot, character motivations, character development. And then eventually we want to move even deeper into author's purpose, their craft, and then hopefully new knowledge and understanding of the language and things like that. Okay, so basically with the discussion, we can direct our students to delve deeper into the stories. So learning about the plot devices, character development, and hopefully moving on to author's message, craft, and new knowledge. So what I do in my classroom is this is one technique, and it's a basic technique. And it's the easiest one to do. It's really effective. Basically, it's just called listen, read, and discuss. So it's one technique, and basically I read aloud to my students, all right, especially a passage that I think is important in the story. So we're reading the story, it's the same story together. And I often repeat the passages, and I may share my thoughts. I may even give them a question about it. I may ask a question to the whole class, and or using so they can what they can see it, so they can actually hear my questions inside my head. So why did he do that? Why did that character do that? Why did Jack go up the hill to get that pail of water? There's no way you would do that. It sounds so stupid. Why did he do that? Oh, by the way, I don't know if anybody knows this, but Jack and Jill is basically, it's the story of the French king, King Louis, and Marie Antoinette. So the king lost his head, broke his crown, and then Jill came tumbling after because she got executed after him. Just to let you know, I learned that on the internet, so it's obviously true, right? So anyway, so basically, when I'm doing my lessons, I'm going through and I'm modeling the thinking that I want them to do, and then I would have the students read, and that's obviously is to listen to practice and have your kids listen to the other kids hear the reading. They can do this in a small group, or they can do it in the whole classroom. And then we break into a discussion. Okay. Now this discussion can be class discussion, small group discussion, or turn and talk to your partner, to the person beside you. So in my classroom, so when I'm doing face-to-face, you can see here, I have them in groups, smaller groups. And basically when they do the discussion, I may give each group the same question, or they may have separate tasks in which they'll bring back to the whole classroom and share their thoughts. Again, this is all done verbally. They're not writing this down. And with me, I rotate through the class, going group to group, listening, giving my opinion, possibly asking a new question to that group, keeping those off task, on task. And then there's Mr. Garcia. You can see the kid up in the left-hand corner being gross. He's probably off in the corner there and stuff. So I have one of those too. Teenagers and stuff. So that's face-to-face. With my school, of course, we've moved online. Then I moved on, right? And I have to say my online experience has been basically failure after failure. I should name this talk "Don't Do This," or "How Not to Do It." It was not easy to do because I don't know how to explain it other than it's that, and basically I came up with this, a cry for help would be best how I describe how my lessons went online at first. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the problems I encounter, and I hope maybe some of you have a better ideas or share them with me, and I'll just come up with some ideas how I came up with it. Basically, the big problem was online, you've got this great big, like the biggest obvious one, they have this great big distraction machine right in front of their nose. I mean, I could listen, like I was listening Jason, and I just quickly looked up the NHL's hockey scores while he was talking. Well, give that to a teenager. They're going to be playing games or whatever they need, right? And as you can see, basically what happened was that the discussion disappeared. Like, how do you turn and talk? And my school was using Google Classroom, and they didn't have breakout rooms. And I'm going to talk about breakout room in a second here, but basically it's like, how do you quick turn and talk? Well, you're in a Zoom or in a Google Classroom, you're not beside anyone. There's no one to talk to. And if you don't have a breakout room, you can't talk to each other. It's just a classroom discussion. So a lot of times I ended up it was just me reading, them listening, and then having them read, and then cold calling, doing cold calls and asking for opinions and stuff like that. It's if I had breakout rooms, the problem with, say, a breakout room is monitoring them. At least in a classroom, I can see all the groups, and I can tell which group is working, which one's on task, which one's having a problem, which kid isn't understanding. Where if I break into breakout rooms, I have to go from room to room to room to do it, and it's not easy. So I'm interested to hear anybody's else opinion of how they dealt with this. So one idea, and I tried this, it was limited success. So one idea, I tried my 45-minute class into smaller 15-minute smaller group lessons. So one lesson turned into 3. That had some success, except the teenager stuff took over. Basically, oh, I forgot what time I was supposed to come in. Oh, I want to be with my friend, and all these sort of things. And so needless to say that it had very limited success. When I did work, it worked out really well because I had a smaller group and we could discuss and go over. And in those 15 minutes, it was quite productive and such. Anyways, that is the end of my talk. So I would be happy to listen to your questions or even your opinions on what I did or suggestions what I could possibly do in the future. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, John. Does anybody have anything to backpack off of what he said, or any additions? We do have some questions for you in our Google Doc. One person asked, were you given any training on online teaching when your school moved online?
I was not. I had to learn it on the fly. I think that's pretty much 99% of us. I don't know. I mean, here, but I think that online, the Facebook, the teaching online, Japan online. Sorry, what's it called? I'll get the proper name here. It's the Online Teaching Japan. When they made that group, that was a big lifesaver. They had some really wonderful tips and stuff like that. I found that was just fantastic. You quickly throw in a problem and people would be able to respond to it. I found that was really wonderful. So, but no online training whatsoever.
Does anybody else have any questions or would like to unmute themselves and chime in person or on video or in the chat, whichever. Everybody's welcome here. This is a free roaming roundtable discussion. Evan, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so I think everything he mentioned about having trouble online is something that everyone's having issues with. That actually leads into my discussion, but I'll say how that relates to it in a moment. But yeah, doing group work online is a completely different classroom management task. Educationally speaking, they can be, fulfill the same task of having like peer-to-peer learning or group learning or whatever, kind of stuff you're trying to do. But specifically learning how to do classroom management online is something that needs to be taught. And it sounds like you, and not only you, but many people were not taught the tools, the ways to use these tools. So I'm really glad that you brought up just how difficult that was, because I think everyone's having that problem.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Yeah, basically a lot of like, you know, when you're doing class management, like it's a lot of systems. Like you're doing things over and over, you're making it habitual for the students coming into your classroom. And when you moved online, you just lost all that, and it's just, and all the things that I had 30 years of experience. I could walk in a classroom, I can have met my class management, I got my stuff going, and then online, you got the machine first of all, which they can just basically, you're looking at you, but they're not. And stuff like that. So yeah, it was a whole new ball game. That was quite the experience.
I guess I'm just going to chime in very
Yeah,
briefly.
go right ahead.
I know we are kind of short on time, very, very briefly. So to begin with, I was very fortunate. I was one of the few who did get a little bit of training on how to go online. So we were able to discuss with other colleagues on how to transition online. And I think at the end, all of us, we just decided to keep it really simple and to use what we do in the classroom and take that online. And I'm going to show a few slides later about how we can like convert the same format of how we teach in a classroom to online. Now, of course, there are difficulties, no question. One of the bigger difficulties that I faced was I could not design my lesson plan the same way as I would offline. So I missed a lot of time with transitions and even with breakout rooms to get the students into breakout rooms, the time lag that it took, and I'm sure all of you experienced that as well. So that's something we need to factor into our lesson planning. Lesson planning itself took much longer when I went online. So that was, again, a bit of a problem. I just wanted to also go back to one of those questions about how to make the classes interesting when you're wearing a mask. And it just occurred to me, one of my friends who's an excellent teacher, he came up with this idea to wear masks with smiley faces and with like funny images. And he was just buying a bunch of masks and he was using that in the classroom, and it became a topic of conversation with the students. I'm going to stop there. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, wonderful conversations. Yeah, I think all of us, you know, I think very few of us actually had any kind of training before being thrown online. The only experience I personally had with online was being an online student for 4 years, getting my master's degree. So like I knew what it felt like as a student, so I was able to use that information to kind of guide my teaching, you know. I remember the stuff that my professors did that I absolutely hated because it was online. So I kind of avoided that. But learning how to teach online, boy, is it different from being a student online. It's very different. So, well, thank you so much. I think we can, if you guys still have questions for John, go ahead and put them in the document, and he might be able to answer them directly in the document. So keep that open, and all of the questions will eventually be answered either live or through word response, through actual response. So let's